it's a lot easier to take a pill. It's a lot easier if somebody tells me it's not my fault. It's a lot easier if I can put the blame outside of me. So what I'm hearing you say is that as we go along life, we're a bit like sponges, emotional sponges. And so every like emotional moment that kind of hits us, that gets absorbed in our cells. And does it ever leave? Is it always there?
Yes. Dr. Mindy in the house. All right.
I appreciate that.
The carnivore diet.
Because of what we eat.
Honestly, you've really touched my heart.
So Fast Like a Girl, it's ready for pre-order now. I hope this book changes your life the way the information has changed hundreds of thousands of women that have applied it. From the bottom of my heart, enjoy and let's get healthy together.
Let me just start by thanking you for coming to the Resetter podcast. I always say that even though you're interacting with me, really there is an army of women and men that listen to this regularly and are dying to know more about be healthier and happier. So thank you for being here.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So the emotion code, I want to start with that because I have to say that I've heard about the emotion code, the book, the process for years. And it was like every time I asked somebody to explain it to me, I became confused. And then it sort of fell out of my mind. And yet I'm hearing it in more and more conversations. So I'd love to just start with how'd you become an emotion code expert? What is it that we need to know about it before we dive into how women can benefit from it?
Yeah. Well, I will explain the emotion code, and then I think explaining my story, particularly my story with my hormones and my health, is going to help explain it a little bit more, give some real life, insight into how it works in the day to day. But basically, emotion code is a form of energy healing that works specifically on the subconscious mind to release emotional baggage. So basically, throughout our whole life, we have these experiences, whether they're big traumas or small stress. We have these experiences where we feel something and we don't process it. It's not validated. It's not acknowledged. It's not processed. We don't learn a lesson from it, and it gets kind of stuck. And what ends up happening is basically our body creates this energy, and it can kind of be stuck in our energy field. It can get stuck in organs. It can get stuck in all different places. And the emotion code finds those and clears it. It's a very simplified way of talking about it, but and to explain what a trapped emotion is, the example I like to give my clients is, when you're driving down the road and a song comes on, and immediately your entire body, mind, everything put back into a specific memory. That's your subconscious at work there. There's some sort of trigger. That song has triggered your subconscious mind in some way to go back into a memory. And so that's exactly how trapped emotions work. And so when we are going throughout our day and, our kids are fighting, or our boss is upset, or we've just got kind of day-to-day stuff, and we notice, once we hit 30s, 40s, 50s, we've got a lot of stuff. We're carrying a lot of stuff. We've just gathered a lot
of baggage.
Yeah. And so what we notice is those little things that should be day-to-day stresses feel really big in our bodies. And we start to notice that, and that's what becomes chronic anxiety or chronic depression. It's just consistently, these trapped emotions being consistently triggered over and over again. So what I really like about the emotion code is the fact that, the goal of it is for you to be able to wake up in the morning and be authentically yourself and present in the moment of what's actually happening, and not reacting out of anything from the past. So being able to show up in a relationship, in your relationship with your kids, at work, with your spouse, and be who you are present in that moment without all this past junk coming along with it. It's taking that off. So, I see people, obviously with the big things, anxiety, depression, things like that, but anybody can benefit from this work. So as far as, people with cancer or a neck pain or any sort of physical problem, there's usually always some sort of emotional connection. And that goes back to, traditional Chinese medicine, where every organ connects to a certain emotion and things like that. And so the interesting thing is, for me, I was one of the women who was, thyroid's off, adrenals are burned out. Like, I was just sick all the time. But everything was fine. Nobody could figure out what was wrong, wow. And I was doing all the things. I had the perfect diet and all the supplements, and, I would just sit reading health books all day, every day. It was just researching for years to try and figure out how to basically feel better and feel more like myself again. And I remember I kept hearing people talk about, the mind-body connection and energy work. And I was just like, first of all, it's just way too woo-woo for me. Secondly, I have a physical problem that I need to fix first, and then I will deal with my emotions. Like maybe it's another food I need to cut out. Maybe it's another supplement I need to add. Maybe it's this. And I was so stressed out trying to feel better that I was making myself sick. And what really happened was this journey to health is really what made me sick. And when I finally kind of threw my hands in the air, I was like, fine, let's start some of this woo-woo stuff because nothing else is working. That's when everything really started to shift. And I realized this was the missing piece, was that emotional piece. And that's, once we got that in, then it was like everything, I just started to feel better. It was amazing.
Interesting. So I want to make one point here, because I think this is something I'm hearing in a lot of common conversations, which is the woo-woo. We like label something woo-woo, but I want to tell you there's a new word for woo-woo in the health space right now, and it's called neuroscience. Like literally. So, the fact that we are carrying some of these old beliefs that healing has to look in a certain way. And if it doesn't look the way that the healthcare system we've been raised in has taught us, we call it woo-woo.
Yes,
that
exactly.
Just blows me away, because
exactly.
If you go back and look at indigenous cultures, you go back and look at the matriarchal society that used to exist, centuries ago, woo-woo was highlighted, intuition was highlighted, emotions were respected, ceremony was respected. And once we got into this linear path of healthcare, we became incredibly blind. Don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because it's so much harder to profit off of your intuition. And
that's right. That's right.
It's a lot harder to make money. It's a lot easier to make money off of a pill than it is to, teach someone how to listen to their intuition.
But also, to your point, it's, as the person on the healing journey, it's a lot easier to take a pill. It's a lot easier if somebody tells me it's not my fault. It's a lot easier if I can put the blame outside of me. So what I'm hearing you say is that as we go along life, we're a bit like sponges, emotional sponges. And so every emotional moment that kind of hits us, that gets absorbed in our cells. And does it ever leave? Is it always there?
Yeah. So that's the thing, is not every emotion that we feel throughout our lives is getting trapped. It is more the emotions that are not validated and acknowledged and released. So if we are now, maybe other people are different, but I know the family, the culture, the religion, everything that I grew up in did not value emotional intelligence. We didn't sit around and have talks about well, when you feel anxiety, this is what you need to do. No, it was just everything's pushed under the rug. And that wasn't that's the culture that we all lived in. And so we grew up thinking that bad emotions were bad, that if we feel sad or we feel scared or we need to hide that. We don't want to feel, especially for women. We have been taught, do not feel angry, do not show that, keep a smile on your face. And so those are the things that get trapped when we are needing to feel something. We're needing to speak up. We're needing in those moments when we don't. That's when things are getting trapped. And what I notice in my practice is it's so many women that are coming to me. And why I think that is because as women, we are more connected to our cycles, to nature, to our intuition, and we're more empathic, we're more intuitive. And we take on things just as much as we feel things. And so women are kind of coming in and they've got all their own stuff, but they're also carrying everybody else's stuff too. They've got all their kids' stuff, all their stuff, and it's, so then these women, and as kind of the gatekeepers to the family, these women are coming in and they are destroyed. Like they are, and I remember I was there. Yeah. Like I just remember not being able to function because my anxiety was so high. Yeah. And I couldn't pinpoint anywhere to start. And I tried everything, I tried every therapy, every healing diet, every stupid supplement, everything. Yeah. And I was just like, it's gotta be gluten. It's gotta be, and not, and so this whole journey made me come to this place of realizing how, especially as a woman, I and every other woman is a very energetic, emotional being. There's nothing wrong with that. There's ways to release this. And then there's ways to go about your day and move through stress and emotions in a much healthier way. There's a way to have that and that empathy and not get it all stuck and trapped.
Yeah. So a couple of things I want to highlight on that was genius. And then I want to get into how we release it. Again, one of my missions right now is to help women step back into our power. And I feel like when we look at history over time, a lot of the patriarchal world we're living in, and this is not an anti-patriarch conversation. I more want to see the matriarch and the patriarch come together. Mm-hmm. But I feel like in this let's just call it the overachiever sort of push on through success-oriented society that we're in, we haven't been given the opportunity to be expressive about our emotions. We haven't been able to show that we're weak. We haven't been able to highlight our intuition. So much of that is missing because our culture doesn't applaud it. So it makes sense to me that it would get pushed down because you feel a little bit like a freak when you start to talk about, well, I have an intuitive hit that this is the way I'm supposed to eat, or this is the supplement I'm supposed to take. I mean, I had a woman years ago in my practice that would hold every supplement that I recommended to her, would hold it up to her head and do an energy vibe with it. And at the time we thought it was silly. And now I'm looking at it and going, oh, she was a genius. What was I thinking? So do you think we're seeing more of this right now because we're at that point where women have pushed enough down and we're tired of pushing it down? And we're starting to see conversations like this emerge where women are like, I'm done with this traditional way of living life and I need to do things differently. Do you feel like that culture is changing?
I think so. I think, I think everything you said was spot on as far as, ignoring our intuition, ignoring all that ancient wisdom that we have within ourselves and pushing through type A, go, 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 ignore everything. That's just not how we as women work. It's just not, for better or for worse, that's just not where we thrive. Yeah. And so it's finding this beautiful balance between, recognizing that we can't just lay around all day and feel emotions. We have to. Right.
It's a good point. It's a very good point.
Also recognizing that it's not a bad thing to have emotions, to be connected to your intuition. It's a really beautiful thing. And I think there's so many women who are chronically sick and stressed out and anxious and depressed, and they don't know what to do. And a lot of times it's not about doing anything else. It's about just getting back to your authentic self and allowing some of those more feminine parts to come out. I know for me, it was pushing, being in my masculine and pushing and pushing and pushing and trying to fix myself, thinking something was wrong, thinking something was broken. And really it was getting, releasing enough of the trapped emotions so that I had enough clarity to realize there's actually nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
I've just been chasing my tail for the last 10 years.
Right.
And I'm not really, I'm not broken.
Right.
I'm just very sensitive. I'm very intuitive. I'm very empathic. I'm a woman, and there's nothing wrong with any of that. There's nothing to fix. And so it's normal that we ebb and we flow, and things aren't linear and perfect all day, every day. So it's finding this delicate balance. And so, yes, we have some women who are still sitting in this place of chronic stress, chronic fatigue, chronic everything. And then there's some women who are starting to transform and come out of that and realize, I just wasn't living in tune with my authentic self. And I wasn't living in tune with nature and like my cycles. And I wasn't being who I needed to be, and allowing all these emotions to come up so they can be released. And then when they do, it's, they're gonna be the ones with the supplements on their foreheads.
Right. But here's the dilemma for I call her the rushing woman. This is a term I learned from Dr. Libby Weaver. Like, there's so many of us that want to achieve. We love our work. We're like, the world is our oyster, but our hormones are demanding that there's an ebb and flow, to your point. So when our hormones, like certain hormones like progesterone, show up, and we're supposed to be more intuitive and more inner, but we've got a big old work day, we're now hormonally out of balance with what the world has on our calendar and what our body says inside.
Yes.
How do we work on that day where we have to push past what our biology is telling us to do? Because I think that might be where a big part of where the emotions are getting shoved down, because there's a little bit of resentment, and we have to sort of go into this driver state that we weren't hormonally prepared for.
Right. No, I totally understand that. And I know those days. Now I have my days and my work schedule and all of that set up so that I do not burn myself out. When I first started my private practice 10, 12 years ago, I was all day, every day, go, go, go.
Yep.
Kids are in bed, keep working.
Me too.
And that didn't last long.
No, I did that for like 2 decades, and I'm trying to undo that.
Yeah, it did not last long for me. And so now, I realized, before I was doing 10 clients a day, and now I'm like 2 to 4 max. And I know that's my limit. And so I think for every woman, if you're working in the home, out of the home, stay at home mom, whatever you're doing, it is finding where your limits are and not apologizing for that.
Yes.
And so even if it's like, shoot, my progesterone's spiking and I need to be home and rest, and I've got this busy day, I do whatever I can to rearrange that if I need to, and rest as much as I possibly can. And even if I'm out and having to be out and do things, I will very intentionally slow myself down, where when that first, estrogen's rising, I'm just like out there, go, 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 let's get shit done.
Exactly.
And
I love that moment.
I really like that part.
Yeah.
That's always really fun. But then I also really honor and welcome the progesterone as well, where it's time to slow down. And even if I'm out running an errand or something, I intentionally slow my body down when I'm doing it. I do not allow the rush of the world to infiltrate. And I try to I'm like, hey kids, mom's having a slow day. I need to rest. And, let the kids pick up the slack, let the spouse pick up the slack, rearrange a client, do whatever you can. But also, if you can, before that hits, set your month up so that you've got time to like, hey, I know that these 2 weeks of the month, I'm going to be like all, guns firing, like ready to go and getting everything done. So I'm going to put these projects here, and then I'm going to slow down and I'm going to work on, quieter work. I'm going to make sure I have time every day to rest. Like for me, it's just downtime every day is a non-negotiable. Like that's just how I work. And I can't, if I push through that, I'm going to be miserable. And so it's really recognizing what your body needs and not apologizing for it, empowering yourself to take charge and say, I need these 2 days. I need these 3 days to rest. I need a rest for an hour every afternoon. Like whatever it is, it's okay. There's no problem with that.
Oh my God, you're totally speaking my language, and you're also stepping into a dream that I have for women. And that is, if we understood our hormones to that level of detail that you just explained, we literally could create a monthly calendar where we're like all the, like, I call it get shit done moments, like we're going to do in the front half of our cycle. Yeah. I also so I have a new book coming out that's all about fasting for women. Okay. And how to time food and fasting to this exact concept. And once I grabbed it, I was like, we could time everything to it. And so I gave different names to the different parts of the cycle. And at ovulation, I call it the manifestation phase, because you've got estrogen, you've got testosterone. Estrogen gives you great mental clarity. Testosterone gives you great motivation and drive. That's a total get shit done moment. But then the back half, when progesterone comes in, progesterone wants you just to chill out and to actually, I learned this from John Gray, where progesterone really wants us to be more in community with other women that are chilling out on the couch together with us. So when we start to look at all this, we're like, wow, we are so primal. We are so tribal. Like, how did we get so off course with something as intrinsically important as navigating our calendar around our hormones?
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm there with you. You're speaking my language as well. It's such a beautiful thing when you realize, like, oh, I'm not crazy. Yes. There's nothing wrong with me, that I'm really tired these 2 weeks. Like there's nothing wrong. And that's right. That's the lesson I have had to learn over and over again throughout my journey, is whatever it is, if I'm feeling anxiety or I'm feeling tired or I'm feeling, whatever, it's all okay. There's nothing wrong with any of it. There's nothing wrong with our emotions. There's nothing wrong with our cycles. If you're tired, you're tired. That doesn't necessarily mean something's wrong. It just means that in our society, in our masculine linear society, we're not allowed to be tired. Right. And say, screw that, I'm going to be tired and I'm going to allow myself to rest. Yeah. So it's really beautiful and empowering when you realize this is all how it's supposed to be. We don't have to conform to this, perfect, always energized, always happy, always getting things done, step for
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. And this is what I hope every woman listening to this is why we have to talk about it. And I think prior to this moment in time, when we talked about being tired, when we said we can't do something, when we are emotional, it's looked at on us as being a negative thing. But when you start to look at our hormones, it actually makes perfect sense. And so when women come together and we say, hey, I got to say no this week because I need progesterone's coming in, or, hey, you know what? You want to start a project together? Let's do it on day 12 of my cycle because I'm going to have all these hormones. That's the world that I think would be so cool. So with that in mind, with that new world that we would want to have these conversations in, what do we do with the old traumas that have been stuffed down? Because let's just use anxiety as an example. As a, I don't even know where I am in menopause, but I'm a 52-year-old woman. I will tell you that anxiety will show up and it doesn't seem logical. Like my brain will say, you got to run, something's not right. And so the younger version of me would try to identify what wasn't right. But the older version of me knows that some physical, emotional, chemical, something is showing up for me to deal with. Yeah. So lead us through what the emotion code says there. Like when that shows up, how can we actually work through it as opposed to blaming everybody around us?
Yeah. So there's two things. Now, I would say anybody who's dealing with kind of a chronic anxiety issue, an anxiety issue that prohibits you from living your life, depression, chronic depression, whatever it is, chronic anger, finding an emotion code therapist is a great idea. That's a perfect way to get rid of all that stuff on that subconscious level. And you said it perfectly when, rationally, it doesn't make sense to feel the way we're feeling, but we still are. Yeah. And something has been triggered on that subconscious level. Now, if it's just kind of random and it happens every now and then, and it's not chronic and not prohibiting you from really fully living your life, that's normal and that's
Right.
okay.
Right.
So what for those people, what I say is, the reason why trapped or emotions get trapped is because they are not being acknowledged and validated. And so the biggest thing, especially when you're in a moment when you're going throughout your day and all of a sudden that adrenaline's there and you're like, I gotta run, or I feel like I'm gonna die, or something's happening. And you look around and you say, okay, nothing in my immediate environment should be provoking that kind of response. What I always tell people to do is, I liken our emotions to small children. So they are very irrational, and they can be. They can be very loud, and they need some attention. And so very similarly, if you're going throughout your day and you're feeling anxiety, think of it kind of like this little kid who's tugging on your leg, like, hey mom, look at this thing. Hey mom, look at this thing. And if you are like, I can't deal with this right now, push it away, that little kid, or that anxiety, whatever it is not going to go away, right? That kid is going to come back and get louder, yank harder, and start, screaming at you, mom, please, I need. And same with anxiety. Anxiety is going to do the same thing. Like, it's going to get louder. It's not going to go away. If we ignore it, it's not going away. So I always say, much like you would pause what you're doing and turn to a little child and give them attention for a minute, we need to do the exact same thing with our feelings as they come up. So it's taking that moment and pausing whatever we're doing, take a deep breath, put your hand on your heart, and just say, hey, like, okay, what's the message here? I'm feeling anxiety. What's going on? Am I physically, mentally, emotionally safe? You have to answer that yourself. And if the answer is yes, then just recognize this is just my body releasing some adrenaline. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to let my body finish doing what it needs to do. And maybe you need to sit and quiet for a minute. Maybe you actually need to get up and jump and stomp and shake it out. And it's tuning into your intuition to figure out, what does this emotion need? What does that little child yanking on my leg need? So a lot of times, depending on where we are in our cycle, sometimes we need to go for a run and shake that stuff out. Other times we need to sit in quiet and rest and let it pass. And it's allowing ourselves to just recognize nothing wrong is happening. We just need to let this emotion move. Now, sometimes there is a greater message. Now, sometimes, that anxiety is meaning, I'm not in the right relationship. I'm not in the right career. There is a bigger message, and we need to listen to that as well. But kind of that day-to-day stuff, it's really just pausing, acknowledging, and just listening to, okay, what do I need now? And going and doing that.
I like that. What do I need now? I think what I've been saying I've done is like, what is this? Where is this coming from? Like, what do I need to change? Or what is it telling me? And then a lot of times I end up with no answer. Yeah. And so what do I need now? I think that's a really, really helpful statement. What I've learned about suppressed emotions in the body is sometimes there's not a language to put to them. So when anxiety shows up or depression shows up, it's hard to figure out what it's telling us. Yeah. Is that what in like when you're working one-on-one with a woman, is there a strategy to get at like what that emotion is tied to?
For sure. That's where more of my intuition comes in. As I'm working and talking with someone, I will start to get kind of these hits of like, and I'll ask them questions like, okay, talk to me about this for a minute. And it'll just be a beautiful conversation of like weaving into kind of where this root cause is. And that's where, we can work together to get to that root cause. And the great thing about that is when we are working on that energetic level, when we work on one thing, if it's anxiety, we're really working on everything. So if this woman comes to me and she's got headaches and she's got hormone imbalance and she's got anxiety and she's got depression, well, they're all connected. It's all branches of the same tree. So as we get to that root cause, we are working on everything. We're healing the entire them. It's just getting the body in a place where we're getting out of that state of constant fight or flight or freeze, so that we can, we can move into something a little bit more authentic and natural.
So some of the emotions that I've noticed just tuning into my body is that it's like the same story keeps coming up. And so do you feel like, as women, as I've studied hormones in more detail, I realized that talking things out actually really can have a hormonal change in us. And again, I go back to John Gray, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. He's taught me a lot on this, that in order to rebalance testosterone and estrogen, verbally processing is really, really helpful. So do you feel like talking out, like, I'm anxious right now because of this, this, and this. I don't know why, but this is what's running through my head. When you say we've got to let go or acknowledge that, is it as simple as grabbing our bestie and being like, this is what I feel right now?
Absolutely. It can be. Absolutely. So that's the thing is a lot of times as women, again, we're used to pushing things down or holding things in, waiting for the right time or whatever. And just being able to talk to someone, if that's your spouse or a friend or a family member, to just balance, and saying, hey, I'm feeling this right now, and open that conversation up and start talking, and make sure it's somebody that obviously that you trust, somebody that can give you good advice, and they're not sitting there with everything pushed down, like, oh, everything's fine. No, you don't want that. You want somebody who's going to give it to you straight, And so, yes, it can be as simple as talking to someone. And if you don't have anyone to talk to, you can literally just talk to yourself. And I will tell people to do that. Like, hey, when you're going about your day and you're doing the laundry and all of a sudden you feel angry, stop and say out loud, I'm feeling angry right now, and it's okay. And then kind of just pause and see what else comes up and see where that comes, just start working with it.
You just gave me a really interesting idea, because one of the things that I studied, or thought leaders I studied for many years, was Abraham Hicks. Do you know Abraham Hicks?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that, their teachings have really been emphasizing is that, if something negative shows up, stop looking at it and look the other way. And I think that can be helpful. But then on the flip side of that, I've also found great peace in doing exactly what you just said. Like, I'm fucking angry, I'm irritable, I'm anxious, and just leaning into it. I did this over the spring. My kids I'm an official empty nester. They've left the nest. Our house was this central hub for all the kids to come hang out on. And so I went into a real deep grief in the emptiness of my house. And I kept trying to use the positive of look at all the freedom I have. I don't look at how clean my kitchen is. And finally, one day I was like, no, I'm going into the grief of this. And for about a month or two, I just was in deep grief, crying every day. And I thought, when am I ever getting out of this? This is horrific. But you know what? After a couple of months of sitting in that, I came out a happier person. Is that what you're talking about? When we're looking at these stuffed emotions, they stay stuffed if we don't acknowledge them and feel them and bring them out.
Yeah, they do. And, there is a time and a place for positivity. Absolutely. But if it is to cover up and Band-Aid a real feeling that you're having, that's not the time or the place. I'm a very positive, optimistic person, but then that's kind of my default. But when I'm feeling something that's not positive and happy, that's not bad. That doesn't mean you're bringing bad things into your life. You're attracting bad things. It doesn't mean you're going to get sick. It just means you're a human, and we cannot sugarcoat being a human, and we cannot, we can't put a smile on our face over that's going back to pushing things down. So if you've got this grief and you're trying to pile on positivity with it, that might work acutely for a minute or two. Right. And guess what? The grief is still there.
Yeah.
And so it is about just, I'm grieving, and that's where you are. And it's okay. It's allowing that grief to move through and do whatever it needs to do. And if one day you're crying and then the next day you feel like you need to go for a walk, and then it's just, this is how grief is processing through my body. And if we put this fake Stepford wife thing over top of it, it's never going anywhere. It's going to stay and it's going to fester. It's going to create disease in our body. It's going to create all these trapped emotions, and it's never going to go away. And we're not going to be able to, trust ourselves. We're not going to be able to see clearly. We're not going to be able to, be connected to our intuition, because all this grief is all stuck everywhere. And so
Brilliant.
there's absolutely a time for positivity, but as a Band-Aid, it does not work.
Yeah. Amazing. That was so well said. So where does emotion code work look different from therapy? Like how do those look different?
So I always tell people, there is a time and a place for both. Talk therapy works just on the cognitive level. So it stops here. Now that's a big part of our experience. I never discourage people from not going to therapy. I think therapy's great. But there is a wall that you hit where there's a lot going on in our bodies and our minds that go beyond just the thinking brain. We're 95% subconscious. So a lot of times people will go to therapy, and I have so many clients, same story. I've been in therapy for 10 years and I've been able to get over things in 2 sessions with you that I've been working on for 10 years. I'm like, I know, because it's there, it's in
the subconscious.
Yeah. So again, if you're looking at stuff from your childhood and stuff that, maybe repressed memory, things you can't even sit and talk about, because I could sit here all day and say, well, I think my anxiety is because of X, Y, and Z. And I could talk about it for the next 3 years, but maybe it's not because of X, Y, and Z. Maybe it's because of A, B, and C. And so, and until we work on that subconscious level, we're not getting anywhere. So it's getting subconscious, because the body knows exactly what it needs to release. And the body knows exactly why that anxiety is there, why that depression's there. And again, like your acute grief from being an empty nester, there's nothing to fix there. There
was nothing to fix, for sure.
But when we've got this chronic long-term anxiety that doesn't go away, there's something subconsciously there triggering you. And that's where subconscious work is just as it's very, very helpful. And so they're very different, and they kind of work in tandem in a way.
Is it more like hypnotherapy, sort of visualization? How do you access? Is it muscle testing? How do you access the body, where the emotions are and what they are?
So I do muscle testing. That's how I do everything. I do it all remotely. I test people. So at the beginning of my session, I tune in energetically to my clients' body and their system, and I just muscle test on myself for them. And so we muscle test and we clear trapped emotions. We can clear all sorts of physical things like toxins, misalignments, all sorts of stuff. And then I also like to do a lot of testing for food intolerances, food allergies, supplements, because most everybody that comes to me is a woman who is on some sort of health journey, and they have been searching for answers, and the body has the answers. And I just am able to tune into that and tell them, hey, your body's really wanting sweet potatoes, or your body really doesn't want this thing or that. And so it's muscle testing and a lot of my own intuition that goes into it.
And is it like where, after you've had a couple of sessions with a woman, now you've reflected, you've cleared energy, you've reflected back what they may want to lean into. One of my challenges with therapy just in general is you have to keep going over and over and over again. And one of my beliefs about the body is that the body is so perfect and it heals itself. So can you look at it like you look down at your car and there's just a lot of dust and dirt on the top of the car. It's time to wash the car. And then the car's clean for a little while until you have to wash it again. Is that how stored emotions work?
So yeah, I always tell people this is not a life sentence. And if it was, I wouldn't be doing my job right. The body it can heal itself. Now what I'm doing is, so if you fall down and scrape your knee and you don't you don't clear it out and you put a Band-Aid on, like it's going to get infected and gross. My job, that's what happens. Those are trapped emotions. My job is to go in and clean the wound, and then your body does what
And then
it's
you go,
supposed to.
right. Yeah.
So it's not my job to heal you. It's my job to get the shit out of the way that is keeping you stuck from healing. It's keeping your body biochemically stuck in fight or flight. And once that stuff is out of the way, once we clear that wound, the body knows exactly how to heal inside, outside, every side.
Amazing.
So it's not, we don't have to, it's not this ongoing long process. A lot of times what my clients do is we have kind of like an upfront, depending 3 to 5 sessions, kind of just depending on where you're at and what you need to work on. So we kind of start with a few up front, and then I just say, hey, let's just give it some time and see how you feel. A lot of times at that point, people are done. They don't need any more. And then other times I have a lot of clients who like to do just like a monthly tune-up session, where it is that sense of like, oh, the car got dirty again. Like we're living our life and we're feeling stressed, come up and, or hey, something traumatic happened. Can you help me? And so I have clients that come back as needed, or just come back every month or two, just to kind of clear everything off and keep them feeling balanced. So it's not an ongoing, forever needed kind of thing. No.
Which I think is brilliant, because the body heals itself. And that if there's one thing I'll go to my grave saying over and over again is the body's perfect. And when we don't feel like we're living in a perfect body, it's really an interference that is stopping that.
Exactly.
So, and then I'm also thinking about how emotions are stuck in the cells. That was Bruce Lipton's work, right? So I'm curious if people's natural healthy habits that they're already doing work better because you clear the emotions. Now that same supplement is going to be more effective for you. Well, one of the things I preach in fasting is that with fasting, you're getting rid of old senescent cells. So you're getting rid of the traumatized cells. But if the thought pattern is still there, you're going to keep making more traumatized cells. So when you're working with somebody, you're working on the past traumas that got stuffed, but then are you giving ideas on how to make sure we don't keep stuffing?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I created an online course called Rooted in Health, and that's where that talks about, that's kind of what I give my new clients as far as like, I'm going to do the subconscious work. Here is the work, the conscious work for you to do. And that's kind of the therapy, emotion code therapy difference is, here's the things you can do day to day. I'm going to work on that subconscious level. And that's kind of where, where I give them the tools for that. And yes, the body, and I mean, exactly what you said, the body is perfect. The body knows exactly what to do. Sometimes we get a little muddled, and the more that we can clear things out of those cells, if it's trapped emotions, if it's toxins, if it's whatever, the body can come back to this natural state of being. And it's so beautiful to witness someone being in this place of being stuck and being overwhelmed and stressed and, confused and all of it. And then clearing some of the stuff out, and all of a sudden they're them again. And it's just, I'm sure you see this too. It's just beautiful.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's what I go back to what I love about fasting is that it's free and anybody can learn to do it. And it has this cleansing experience. But the part that most people don't realize is that those emotions are in the cells as well. So as you're cleansing them out. But I also, after watching so many women heal their hormones, that there's patterns of thought, there's stories we've created in our heads, there's emotions we've pushed down. I love what you said about us being so empathetic. And I really think we want to highlight that that's a part of our superpower. And yet we are in this world we've conformed to. Yeah. So do you feel like if we look at the direction that women can really thrive in, is there going to be this emotional range of high and low as women start to express themselves more? And how do we tell the people around us that this is completely normal and this is part of my healing journey?
That's a great question. I think as women, we naturally have these highs and lows. And there is nothing wrong with it. And to make sure that our partners and our families are on board with understanding that and supporting that, that's the best way that we can thrive. And we know, as the women and the mothers in these homes, we know that we are the ones setting the vibe for the whole place, right?
Amen.
And
Amen.
if we're off, everybody's off.
Amen.
And so the best way to support ourselves is to make sure that they all know, hey, mom needs to rest. Mom needs help with the dishes today. Mom needs help, whatever. Because everybody's going to benefit from that. It's okay to not feel 100% all day, every day. And I think that wellness culture has created this fake story in our minds of, well, if I just cut out gluten, then I'm going to feel like $1,000,000 all day, every day. And that's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. Food is great. All supplements are great, blah, 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 blah. But it is really about getting back to your authentic self, honoring your cycles, honoring those ebbs and flows, acknowledging and honoring what we're feeling, and giving ourselves what we need, whatever that means. Not holding ourselves to this standard of, I need to be doing HIIT workouts every day, and I need to be doing this every day and this every day, and I should, work on these clients and finishing this and blah, blah, my house should be perfect and everything. No, then we're just miserable, right?
Yeah, right. But that's I really hope people listening, I hope this gives us an excuse to be perfectly imperfect, because the female body and hormones are there to motivate us and retract us, for us to feel euphoria and to feel sadness. And this is the beautiful part of the woman experience. And I love living in a female body because I can have all of this whole spectrum. But our culture has put us into a little box. So I just adore what you're doing. And are you seeing any changes on hormonal tests? I'd love to take a woman who's having hormonal struggles, have them work with you, and then do another hormone test and see what changes.
So, the only one that I've been able to do is my own.
Okay, well, maybe we should do me. You can, because I just did one, but go ahead.
Yeah. So I was a patient of Zach Bush's 15 years ago. And we were at this crossroads where something was going on. I wasn't feeling right. We were trying all these things. My thyroid labs were not normal, but we were we could not, no matter what we tried, we could not get them within normal range. And then I started working with an emotion code practitioner. And I went back to Zach and I was like, Zach, I feel better. I don't know what this thing is. It's weird, but I feel better. And he's like, okay, we got to figure out, because he was just as stumped as I was trying to figure out how to help. And so, we worked together and we started running labs. Within 6 weeks, my labs were normal. And he was just like, this is, you got to learn how to do this. I'm like, okay.
I love Zach. Zach is so great.
So it was, for me, it's, if I can keep myself in a place of honoring myself, of keeping myself balanced emotionally, then my hormones stay in balance.
Yeah.
If I honor what I need, and if that's rest today and a HIIT workout tomorrow, or, I feel really good today and I feel really sad tomorrow, and all of it's okay. And I just allow myself to be who I am, that everything stays in balance. And one other thing I wanted to mention was, this, going back to that idea of carrying these stories in our cells and these thoughts, these negative belief systems. The biggest thing that I have found in myself and in my practice is that women carry these stories of, there's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
And that is the thing that affects us so deeply on that cellular level, where if we really believe that deep down in ourselves, then our physical, mental, emotional bodies are going to express that somehow. And we are going to stay stuck in cycles of always needing to be fixed, always needing someone else to fix us, always needing to change our diet, always needing to change our workout routine, always needing to, and that is that cycle that we need to get out of as women, is thinking that because I'm tired today or because I'm anxious today, there's something wrong with me.
Right.
There's not. There's nothing wrong with you. And it's changing that belief system to there's nothing wrong with me. And then we realize we're okay. And we're not wasting $1,000 a month on useless supplements. And we're not, and we can actually tune back into who we really are and live from that place, and not live from this place of constant, trying to better ourselves, but from a really easy way, Yeah.
Oh my God. I love that. And I also feel so empowered in this self-healing ability of our body. And what I hear you say is remove the interference, and the emotion code is a huge part of removing the traumatic interference. So,
For sure.
this is, everybody's health is a puzzle, right? We've got to put it all together. So, this is a missing piece that I see for so many women. So I appreciate you geeking out on me. We didn't even get to talk about nature and the healing power of nature. Before I ask you my final question, where does nature fit into the woman's cycle, into a woman's trauma? Let's just go there.
Well, we are nature, so it's that is what it is, right? So
brilliant.
So another beautiful example I always tell people is, like, if you look at a tree, and it is there, you're plopped onto earth. There's one tree. You've never seen a tree before. You have no idea what's going on. You're going to see that tree go through the cycle of nature, through spring, summer, fall, and winter. When fall and winter hit, you're going to think that tree is dying. You're going to think something's wrong with this tree. I'm going to throw it. What are you going to do? You're going to throw green juice on it. You're going to throw, fish oil on it. You're going to throw, like, oh my gosh, this tree is dying. There's something wrong with it. And then in spring, that tree looks like it's coming back to life. And it's like, oh, thank goodness I threw that green juice on it. When in reality, this is just the cycle of nature. We don't need to, we can't control that. We have no control over that. We don't make the tree rebirth itself in spring. It just does that. And we are, as women, all of us, but specifically women, we are a part of that cycle. And so if you are in winter right now, there's nothing wrong.
Right. There's nothing you can do.
And there's nothing you can do. You have to enjoy it. You have to embrace it. Like, if you want your winter to be a better experience, you just have to embrace it. Like, put on your warm coat and get cozy, because it's winter time, and spring is coming. Spring always comes. And I think that's just, we've forgotten that. And we get into these cycles of winter, if that's just our monthly cycle, or a cycle of grief, or a cycle of depression or sadness or whatever. And we think, oh my gosh, this is it. I'm dying. It's never going to go away. And then we throw all the stuff on it. Like, we can throw at a tree, and we're going to heal, and we're going to rebirth when it's time, no matter how much we throw at it.
I love that analogy. And I got to tell you that I really dream of a world where women have more conversations like this, and that we give ourselves permission to be in that winter. And then we have to train the world how to deal with us in winter. And we're seeing glimmers of it. I don't know if you know that Spain has just did a countrywide menstrual leave that women can
I saw that.
3 days out of the month, and they can and no questions asked, they can just say when they need to leave. We're also seeing evidence of it in the workplace. There's a lot of discussion around menopause in the workplace, and how women going through menopause need some extra mental support, because you're taking all those hormones away. So I just say all that, Megan, to say conversations like this and the work like you're doing, this is going to transform women's health. So your words have hit really well on my heart, and I love what you're up to.
Oh, thank you so much.
So, and then let me finish with this question. So, when we started 2022, I don't even know what year we're in anymore. I felt like we came off 2 years of us just bitching and moaning about the world, and we all lost sight of gratitude. So I made this year, the theme of this season, gratitude. So do you have a gratitude practice? If so, what is it? And what are you grateful for in this year, 2022?
So I had a much more, day-to-day gratitude practice years ago. And kind of what I like to do now is every evening at dinner with the kids, we just sit down, we go around, we talk about our day, and we try to talk about something that we're grateful for. And I think I think that's such a great thing to do.
Oh yeah.
For ourselves, but also for our kids too, to help that perspective shift, especially in this day and age, we start to just numb out to how great we really have it.
Yeah.
The thing I am grateful for is I'm getting married this year. So,
Oh yeah.
so I'm grateful for my almost husband.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I love that. So where do people find you, Megan? I have a feeling we've probably stirred a lot of thought process and thoughts going on in women in our community. So how do people find you?
Yep. So I'm on Instagram at Harmony Restored. My website is just harmony-restored.com. I also have a nonprofit camp, nature camp for autistic children. That website is guidingarrowcamp.wordpress.com. And you can reach out to me in any of those avenues.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you for this conversation, and let's keep having it. Let's keep bringing this kind of level of communication amongst women. And then the more we understand ourselves, the more we can teach people how to take amazing care of us. So thank you, Megan. So appreciate you.